Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is the second video that I'll have made about some really common misconceptions about the Myers-Briggs Temperament Indicator that are flying around all over YouTube and, from what I hear, all over the internet in all kinds of discussion forums and so on about personality typing. And I think that there are things that anyone who's even a little bit interested in the Myers-Briggs would really like to know. And in fact, if they are things that if you don't know them, then guaranteed almost you are going to be mistyping like crazy, and also using the MBTI as a frame to discuss certain things that have absolutely that cannot have anything they cannot have anything to do with the Myers-Briggs Temperament Indicator. So it might be good then, if you're going to continue to discuss such things, to take it out of those forums, because they don't belong there. They have nothing to do with the model. And in fact, the model, if we look at what the actual inherent limitations of the model are, and I mean that in a positive sense, there's certain things that the model says, and then there are things and some of those things that it says and that are inherent in its structure preclude certain statements that are kind of popularly going around out there under the rubric of the MBTI, kind of prove that those things cannot possibly be true, they cannot exist within the model. So maybe we should stop saying that they do. Now, most of the content of this video of mine is very derivative. It's based on a really interesting interview, an episode from a couple of years ago from the wonderful series NFGeeks with Dr. Mike. And it was a talk that Dr. Mike had with a lovely INFJ vlogger who's done some really great videos. Her name is Ann Dresden. And the two of them were having a discussion about what it's been like to go through the certification process for the MBTI, and also what their experiences have been in actually administering the MBTI, the official long form thing, according to the way they've been trained. And wow, it opened my eyes about a couple of things. And I'm going to have to go back and make a correction in my first video about MBTI misconceptions, and then clarify something and stop even suggesting that a certain thing that is popularly understood to exist, it doesn't. It really doesn't. So make sure you're sitting down, guys. All the MBTI nerds watching this, I know that this is going to be a shocker. It's going to be a shocker to some of you. And by the way, I'm going to put the link to this very interview in the description box for this video, so that you can go see it yourself and check out anything that I'm saying. The reason I'm going over it again is just because there's just oh my God, there's just so much. Again, sorry I got so kind of scoldy and intense about it last night in my other video about about not fudging your answers on the MBTI. It's been intense, maybe. I just get so excited. I love it so much, and I don't like seeing lies being told about the Myers-Briggs. So anyway, so in this video too, I just don't think this can be said often. The stuff that I learned from this interview, I don't think it can be said enough. So, all right, big bombshell number one. All you people out there who are going around saying that you're a thing X thing, or an X thing, or a thing X thing, or etc. Just one left variation in an anagram for an MBTI type. Guess what? According to the official Myers-Briggs Temperament Indicator, that is not possible. It's not possible at all. In fact, there is. So in other words, people who are saying that they are on the midline on one or more of the preference scales in the MBTI, the official word from the MBTI is the org is that, and that which is training the certified practitioners in that model. What they're taught is there is no midline. There's no midline, guys. There's no midline. So, what I'm going to be doing from now on is, I was very skeptical of the idea that very many people at all, more than an infinitesimal number of people, could really be on the midline. That was my stance until I saw this interview, but with Ann Dresden and Dr. Mike. But after this, I'm going to be rather more bold and just flat out saying, it's horseshit, guys. It's horseshit. So if you're going around saying that you're a thing, X thing, in your anagram, you might be really smart and have done quite a bit of research. And again, I don't mean to impugn anyone who's doing that. But at the same time, it needs to be said, and I hope it gets said more, so it will eliminate a lot of misinformation and confusion and mistyping and just all kinds of unwanted stuff having to do with the MBTI, to say that that's just total horse crap. It's not possible. You are going to have a preference for doing something a certain way 51 times out of 100. And apparently any certified practitioner, I'm not one, but apparently any certified practitioner who's administering the assessment to you, if you are a client, they're not going to buy it. If you're like, no, I'm really on the midline. I'm one of those people, and I don't care, how rare that is. I'm one of them. The practitioner's not going to believe you at all. And they're going to sort of gently and respectfully talk to you and kind of illustrate to you why that is so, put it bluntly, impossible. Pretty much impossible. So from now on, I'm going to be thinking of that midline that you actually see in the graphic, where they're sort of showing what the percentages are on the 4 preference scales, when they sort of graphically show the model in that way. I'm going to be thinking of that midline now, as in my mind, it will be sort of like an interruption mark, those 2 sort of slash marks you might see on an XY graph, on the X or the Y axis, or both, of a graph, which indicates that there is a part of the data set that's being spoken of in the context that is not being represented on those axes. It's a way of just indicating, like, this isn't all that you're seeing. I'm going to think of the midline of the MBTI now as a great big interruption mark, indicating that it's not really like what's inside that symbol. That vertical line is actually a big wormhole. And if you've got a good imagination, you can think of it as like some big wormhole, or it's nothingness. It's like a big expanse of, I don't know, you science people out there, maybe you have a better analogy, but yeah, it's not possible. You cannot be standing on it because it's nothingness. It's nothingness. There's nothing there. So wow, huh? What do you think of them apples? That was something. And the way they were kind of explaining it, like the 2 of them were discussing certain common things that are difficult that come up when they're actually doing the assessments with people, and sort of helping them, guiding them, counseling them through it. And they said that, Ann Dresden made the comment that one of the difficulties for her is when everybody wants to fight the questions. And also that a lot of people, that quite a few people want to insist that they're on, and Mike Bugia chimed in too, and he says he's seen this quite a bit as well, that a lot of clients want to insist that they are on the midline with one of the preference scales. And they each share their rather interesting anecdotes and their approaches for how to deal with that problem, like how to get that across to the person, but without being, like doing it in a diplomatic and informative way. And one of them was saying that, what they think, the clients that insist they're on the midline, what they think those clients think they're saying is that they're saying, no, I'm a very versatile person. I'm more versatile than average, and I don't want to commit to one side, I don't want to commit to the wrong side. I don't want to commit to just one side or the other. So I'm going to say that I'm in the middle, which just like nicely covers the bases and just shows what a wonderfully flexible and well-rounded person I am. And what these practitioners are saying is like, what they have to explain to the client is like, no, that's not really what you're doing. If you're insisting on being in the midline, you're, even after it's been explained to you, you might want to consider the fact that you're dealing with a certified, highly trained, official MBTI practitioner who's a professional in this and is completely legit and knows their stuff. And if you really want to be paying that person for their expertise, and then spending all your paid time arguing with them about that expertise and arguing that, no, what I read on BuzzFeed was blah, 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 and like, they must be right. And you're arguing with a certified MBTI practitioner, first of all, isn't that like just a little foolish, a little silly? I don't know. But anyway, people get married to, people get really hung on. They like to hang on to their ideas, myself included. Most of us have a tendency to do that. Sometimes we get maybe some of the some types more than others, but some of us get a little bit emotionally invested in certain notions that we've had for a long time, and we are reluctant to let them go, even when it's clearly the reasonable thing to do is to let it frickin' go. I think this would be one of them. So they're trying to put one. I think it was Anne who said that she would try and say to someone, "No, that's not what you think you're choosing," and insisting that you're on this midline, which doesn't exist. What you're actually doing is saying that you don't have a preference for anything ever in all time, like that you're voting for nothing. It's not that you're voting for something that's valorous and shows how wonderfully well-rounded you are, and how kind of flexible and easygoing you are. No, or just what a range you have. You're actually doing the opposite. You are choosing something. You're choosing nothingness. That's what you're insisting on for yourself. So, I mean, they can only go so far. Like, if you're going to insist on nothingness, and you're going to insist that these certified practitioners are completely wrong, and that you and whoever was in the Facebook forum of whatever, and what they said is the right thing, well, what are you going to do with that, huh? The other bombshell that was there, this I think was for me was the most important thing that came out, that came out of that very interesting interview, all-round interesting interview. And that was when Anne Dresden made the point that the only reason that the questionnaire exists at all, and this is again the official line, the only reason it's there is because it's there to possibly save the inventory taker, the client, the person who's being assessed, who's seeking this kind of assessment. It's to save that person the time of reading through all 16 of the personality type profiles to select which one they feel a real kinship with, and they identify with, and that they feel is a good reflection of manifestations of their habits of mind. And that's the point of the questionnaire. So I think that's a real shift from, I think, how most people out there are thinking of the MBTI questionnaires. A lot of people are like jealously hanging on to the questionnaires and whatever the questionnaire said, and really referring to it, and sort of thinking it's some kind of rock of Gibraltar of truth about yourself or whatever. And actually what she's saying, and which is apparently the official line for the MBTI, is the questionnaire really is an instrument. It is just a tool. The important part of the thing is how you feel, what your identification is with any one of the 16 personality types. And you know what? This really shouldn't be such a bombshell if you had known, as I did, that a huge part of the official assessment in the MBTI is the second part of the consultation, which is the one in which the administrator of the MBTI goes over the results from your written assessment, your answers to the questionnaire, and what type the pattern of your responses kind of points to and indicates that you would probably have a strong identification with. So that's the thing. So the questionnaire is actually a really minor part of the assessment, in a sense. The real assessment is and it's the official line. Like what they're supposed to do is that if the test results indicate, or sorry, not the test, the instrument results indicate that such and such a person is likely to identify with this, one of the 16 types, and then the client goes and reads that one, but they're like, yeah, I don't really see myself in that, or not very much of myself. What the practitioner is supposed to do is then go with the client and have them do some probing and ask some questions and try and clarify some things in a very sort of facilitative way with the person being assessed, and then have them look at neighboring personality type profiles to see if any one of them is a hit, if any one of them gets a really strong response out of the person of identification. But that's the real MBTI, like that process right there, that kind of counseling process. I mean, ultimately it is up to the client to decide what their type is. That's an official part of the assessment. The practitioner is not ever supposed to say to a client, well, you're mistaken. Like the one you think you are not that one. You are clearly, the test said you're this, and the test is right. Like the instrument, the written part of the assessment, that is the truth about your type. That's actually not at all part of the MBTI official protocol at all. So the questionnaire is it really is just an instrument. It's just supposed to save you some time so you don't have to read the entirety of all 16 profiles before you figure out which one, and then think about all of them before you can figure out which one suits you the best and really reflects what you're about. So that's another big chunk of information I think it's good to know. Then the last little bit that stuck out for me in this interview was about what the percentages on the scales mean. Now, I've done some of the, as well as having been administered the official long form MBTI inventory by a certified practitioner. I've also done some of the popular online ones, and I've come up ENFP every time. And I have noticed on the online ones I've done that I was given, I think there were a couple that showed me a graphic of the 4 scales and kind of where my sort of percentage on each scale, showing my preference, where it fell. And then there were a couple of others, if I remember correctly, where it was just the percentage. So in my case, my percentage for extroversion, my percentage for intuition, etc. And the point was made in this NFGeeks interview that that's a hugely common misconception out there, is that the percentages are supposed to reflect sort of how much, like what your content is of this preference. In other words, that a lot of people will mistakenly, and I was one of them, will mistakenly assume that that it's possible to have a 0 score, which apparently it's not, because there is no midline. There is no actual midline in terms of values for this thing in showing preferences. And that, let's say if 0 was the starting point, then if you got a, 100% or 99% on such and such a scale, that would mean, oh, you are the ultimate extrovert, you are the ultimate. But, and Dresden was clarifying and saying, no, that's not correct. What those percentages actually mean, they're not letting you know, what, they're not exactly letting you know just what a super feeler you are, or whatever it is, whichever scale it is. What it's letting you know is how clear your preference is. Like just how clear it is. So even if you're 5%, say, let's say you get a 5% on the perceiving versus judging scale, and it's 5% score on the judging side of things, that doesn't mean that you're barely a judger. It doesn't mean that you're like, oh my God, you're pretty much a perceiver judger, but just the tiniest bit of a judger. No. You are clearly a judger in this model. It's just that your preference for judging could be even stronger. It could be even more obvious. But there is no question that you are a J and absolutely not a P within this model. Again, if you're going to follow the model, that's what it says. That's how it works. And that's it. So I thought people would like to know that. I think that might really help with some of the mistyping that's going on all over the place and all the confusion that's happening. And that's it. So more typing tips coming up very soon. Very specific little things I can think of that might help people get in the right frame of mind for getting a more, just upping the chances of getting a more accurate typing using the tools that either the MBTI itself or something that's very much like it. So thanks for checking this out. Goodbye.